Go. Yeah, go.
Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello again. How about your break? I hope all participants are refreshed now. Those who are now at noontime, have you had your break, your lunch? I hope you have very nice lunch. Okay. As I said this morning, that we will have two plenary discussion for today, and now we'll come to the second session of the plenary session. Today we will have 5 speakers. Of course, they are experts on their field, and I'm sure they will give you valuable information and everything. And then I'm very happy now because we have Miss Vivi as the moderator for this session. Let me show the resume of Miss Vivi. Sorry. Yes, here they are. Okay, to make it fast, because we have 5 presenters today, I would like to inform Miss Vivi and give the floor to Miss Vivi. Yes.
Hey, thank you, Ibu Ade. Thank you very much for having me again as moderator today. Assalamualaikum, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Rahayu, Salam Kebajikan dan Salam Sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good afternoon and I believe good day for our all distinguished speakers and fellow science enthusiasts in this virtual room. Welcome again to Young Citizen Conferences 2021, presented by Miles Said and organized by Dr. Rabbit Science Inc. I'd like to remind you again about the intention of Young Citizen Conference. This conference is dedicated to the views and concern of youth regarding the social impact of science and technology on the modern world, and gathering youth voices from every part of the world and encouraging them to actively enter the discussion. So today, this is the time for us adults to listen and learn from our young generation. And this is time also for you, young generation, to raise your voice. And today, we are going to listen to our 5 distinguished speakers before going to the main discussion tomorrow on Saturday. And it's so interesting, and I'm so lucky to be here because we have like excellent speakers from various and diverse topics, and I hope all of you guys are ready for this. So firstly, I would like to invite our first distinguished speaker, which is Dr. Finarya Legoh, or she preferred to be called only Ibu Finarya. But before that, I'd like to give a short brief about who this superwoman who engaged with a lot of scientific paper is. Achieving her MSc and PhD degrees from Salford University, UK, Dr. Finarya serves as a lecturer at the University of Indonesia since 2002, and she also assists as the Vice Chair of Special Committee on Science, Health, Agriculture, Peace, and Environment, or we know it as SHARE, Communication at the Association Academics and Societies of Science in Asia, and a member of the Public Communication of Science and Technology, or PCST. And I believe she also is the head of International Relations of the Indonesian Academy of Science, or AIPI, where SNT policy is disseminated to the authorities, media, and public. She also Executive Director for SNT Center of PPITEC, or from the Agency for Assessment and Application Technology, or BPPT. So without further ado, please welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Finarya Legoh. Dr. Finarya Legoh, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pipi, for a very nice introduction. Hi, everyone. Glad to meet you all here. Although that I just talk, in front of my screen, but I believe that all of you from all over the world, globalization, you are just watching me at the moment. So I'm glad to Dr. Rabbit Science to invite me in this very prestigious event. So let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, okay.
Okay, so shall I share slideshow? Great. So you can see my screen now. Okay, now I'd like to talk about globalization. So are we in the right track? So, and then, I should congratulate all of you to be part of this Young Citizen Conference. I'm glad that you try to globalize yourself as well. That's very great, all of you. Okay, right. Our content, my content, try to make it's a bit musical with a prelude, interlude, and coda. That is on the right. And on the left, you can see Generation Z. What is it? They're actually Generation Z. They are you. You are the future, because this Z generation, born 1997 to 2012, and the characteristics is connected, global, creating future, social media drivers, and all good ideas about the future, they are all rely on you. So I'd like to congratulate you to be the future of our world. So this is my talk in here. So you can see on the right side. I just don't want to read through one by one. You can read that yourself. Now, at the beginning, introduction, what is globalization? I believe this morning, my colleague, Dr. Aswin Sasongko, already mentioned as well about globalization. So I hope it would be different, because otherwise it would be boring. Okay, so from the World Economic Forum, globalization, why is it called like that? Because people and goods should move easily across borders. So principally, this is the economic concept: integration of market, trade and investment, and then just to reduce the barriers of the flow of product and services between nations. This is what we call it globalization. But also it's a mixture as well, assimilated with cultural elements, ideas, traditions, so enrich all what globalization it is. I will give you the example of coffee chain Starbucks. That the first outlet opened in 1971, but today the chain got 15,000 outlets all over the world. That is globalized company. And then the company purchased 247 million kgs of unroasted coffee from 29 countries. Through store of purchases, they provide jobs to the hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. So, but when do you think the globalization start? No one knows. Because that we realize that living in a global network is from the decades before. We can record from the history. So anybody of you could learn about the Silk Road. The Silk Road is just like the way online on trade rapidly between East and West of the countries. That is like an overland route where merchant carries goods for trading, especially silk from China, and then gems as well from India and then Afghanistan, spice, of course, and coffee coffee is originally come from Turkey for social setting coffee. It's a custom of Turkey, but now, you know, it's globalized all over the world, and I always drink coffee in the morning and afternoon, you know, to make myself awake. So it was central in the economic, cultural, political, and religious interaction. So why that? What drives that globalization? And then, of course, that would be technology. Science, technology drive the globalization. Internet access is a must as well. And it developed rapidly for connectivity and communication. So people could share ideas, knowledge widely. It's kind of at your fingertips, so you can just, you know, communicate with other people in the other side of the world. So the improvement of transport also make that globalization is very smooth and rapid development because of that. Okay, now, after that, I'd like to talk about another institution which called UN, United Nations, which you already know, I believe, that they've got the goals in 2030, which we call it Sustainable Development Goals, or SDG. So it should be fulfilled in 2030. There are 17 goals, so you can have a look in here. And I believe that you're already familiar with this one. And the first, but I'd like to just, you know, highlight the for quality education, because you are Generation Z, and you need education to make a better world in the future. And then quality education is also interact with other goals as well. So this means that you cannot work yourself in this quality education, but you can have to spread your knowledge to other goals too. Okay, but if I'd like to highlight this one, goal 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So this means they've got target for 2030, and they've got a kind of criteria. What is the quality education? You can see in here, but that is based on science and technology. And you need to use evidence-based data and information, and you've got to use as well the innovation and critical thinking. So they are all needed for your future job, your future career as well. About this. Okay, and then now I'd like to highlight again, just in the umbrella of that United Nations, we've got the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF. And they've got the guideline of strategy for education from 2019 to 2030. And why that they emphasize in information and communication technology. This is one of strategy that I'd like to highlight in this in my talk, because in here you can see that, oh, okay, so they use ICT because that ICT have very potential implication for future learning and education. Anything, anywhere, to anyone, at any time. Oh, that's good. And then what else? And then they demands the new demand and education curriculum systems that would be connectivity, digital skills. So this means that, okay, so we've got to move from one to another. Okay, so this is kind of revolution to another step of education too. The challenge is support safe, affordable, and effective application of ICT in education. And we've got to see as well, you know, about the safety and also how that we can interact with the work. This is from the UNICEF. Now, shall we see what UNESCO mentioned about the consensus, Beijing consensus? It was May 2019. And UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. That also, the body under the United Nations. Again, this UNESCO mentioned about planning integrated artificial intelligence in education policies. So AI for education management and delivery, AI to empower teacher and teaching, AI for learning, AI for development. And so they are all in AI and education policies. So what's going on with this one? Why did we just, all statement and consensus, they just make, in ICT development. Okay, now let us check about what the OECD Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They just give also a paperwork for future education. And then one of the ideas is the future education and skills for 2030. That is, the aim for SDG goals in 2030. So the aim of the project is two far-reaching questions. The first question is, what knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values will today's students need to thrive and shape their world? And second question is, how can instructional systems develop this knowledge, skill, attitude, and value effectively? So meaning that how about develop for future education system or learning management system? So they mentioned about the competencies to transform our society and shape for our future. So we've got to create new value and reconciling tensions and dilemmas and taking responsibility. Okay, now they are all just go to the Sustainable Development Goals and they are going to use ICT or AI for the future development and also for future education. Oops. Okay, now what is it? Behind those program and everything, so we realized that we have like a kind of industrial revolution 4.0. So this is the concept which actually introduced since 2011 from German government to promote computerization of manufacturing, presented at Hanover Fair in 2013. So meaning this is actually for making easy in the processing industry. And sometimes we call it just, Industrial Revolution 4.0. So that characterized by fusion of technology and also the lines between physical, digital, and biological aspect of life is a bit blurred because it's just kind of integrated. But four design principles as interconnection, information transparency, technical assistance, and decentralized decisions. So why is it that they create this Industry 4.0? Because they'd like to create or foresee the environmentally sustainable manufacturing, green processes, green supply chain management, and green products. So that is the aim why we want to use this Industry 4.0. Beside the effectivity and also fast process of industry. I like this quotes. So I think it's just, it's the quote is emphasized that the fourth industrial revolution changes not only what we do, but also who we are. It affects our identity and all the issues associated with it. So this is a good one. And I think you should rethink about this one as well, because, maybe, you know, my span of life is not as long as your span of life, and you are the future, and now you are gathering here together. So it's a good one, you know, that you rethink about this kind of globalization. Okay, so I'd like to emphasize the four major components of Industry 4.0. So you can read through all of these, but they are all, if you can see this one, they are all ICT based. Cyber physical system, Internet of Things, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. So they are all ICT based. So do I have to learn about ICT based, or shall I take ICT for a base of my study? It's really up to you. But anyway, just rethink about, you know, what work will develop or will do or will go in the future. So this is the components of Industry 4.0. So are they all based on ICT? We will see. Okay, now what is Education 4.0 then? So you can get access, you can get knowledge, you can have your education anywhere, anytime. And it can be personal, because what field, what major that you'd like to take, flexible delivery, peers and mentors. So all the lecturers would be like a kind of mentors for you. And why and where, not what and how. And then practical application, modular and projects, so it's kind of very specific. And then you've got the ownership as well, and evaluate it, not examine. So it would be, your work will be evaluated on and on, what should be good and what should be continue and what is progressing good. So all the feature in here, it's kind of extinction of many types of work that can be replaced by ICT and AI. But that can work be placed by human-made intelligence, or do we still have, you know, room for a real human work for that? Of course, yes, because that the social science and also type of work that requires as well for that for human brain is high social skills. So this means that there are still rooms, because all the artificial intelligence and everything that is derived from human brains. And then what is driver for this one? So future scales, 10-year life, meaning that, you know, the lifespan of the work of the project, which is in a long period. And then a millennial mindset, digital network and devices, personal data, collaboration platforms, talent investment, share content and resources, and social progress. That is important in here. Collaboration platforms show social progress, because you cannot work yourself. You've got to work in collaboration with other friends, with other colleagues, you know, to make or to develop something, a good one in the future. And then we just try to develop the 10 vital skills that you need for your future work. Not that 10 skills that you've got to fulfill, but anyhow, you've got to rethink, to consider about what that you are good at. So are you good in leadership skills, creativity, or are you good in technology skills, or diversity and cultural intelligence, something like that. So you can mix, and then you can choose which one that you are good with for these skills. And then from that skills, this is another question. Are we ready for future work? So there are all the characteristics in here. Work will be market-driven and user-centered. And then will be data and metrics-driven. Will be interwoven with learning. Will be grounded in relating. Will be modularized and recombined. And then the core is individual awareness, social awareness, self-discover. And then after that, you've got also another criteria in there, which you can see and digest yourself later after this. Okay, so this is for Industry 4.0. This is what I call interlude. Things are planned nicely, and then things are developed nicely, but here comes COVID-19. All of a sudden, the world is devastated because COVID-19 has created largest disruption in the history of humankind. So affecting all sectors in the world, from the economy system, social system, education system, so intertwined all the everyday lives of humans. Now it's very popular. We can say, work from home, school from home, stay safe, and all the statement that previously it's very rare that we hear about that. So this COVID-19, when came into the world and still continue up to now, and that's why this conference, just online like this, operated online. This is because of, our little creature, what is called COVID. And then on the left is kind of caricature that I like it very much. This is from Turkey, GP, just mentioned about COVID. And then also because of COVID, so affecting all the sectors, but we need to continue our learning process. We need to continue about running the governance. We need to continue about the economic trading. So what should we do? So because of that, the pandemic show us well the importance of science and technology. And also that distance education and distance learning, and then been rushed and developed, and then just create so many applications for online platforms. And then now we rely on science and technology. And scientists now sometimes become kind of famous scientists because they need to talk to the people in social media about the danger of COVID and what we should do, something like that. So it's kind of science communication as well that we need to think about that. And then the other question, another question, are we ready for future education? And on the same time, challenge for post-COVID-19. So, but we've got to face as well for Industry 4.0. So how about the trend? Would it be similar? Okay, let's see. This is the example of my granddaughter. She lives in Kuala Lumpur. This is part of globalization as well. My daughter, after working, and then she's working in Jakarta, but her project is in Singapore and in Kuala Lumpur, and she met her husband in there, and her husband is Sri Lankan. They live in Colombo for a while, and after that, they at the moment they live in Kuala Lumpur. And this is my granddaughter. She's 5 years old, and she must learn from home. So you can see, but she's 5 years old that must learn from home. So what she did, at first she sat nicely and learned what the teacher said, and then do what teacher, ask her to do. But later on, she get bored, and then she just squat and then just play a bit. And after that, okay, now it's time for me, for relax a bit. And then she didn't concentrate anymore. And all of a sudden, okay, I will sit again, but I'd like to put my legs, on the table. That's funny. I like this picture very much because, this is, the portrait of how that we should learn from home. And again, this is very, for very young students. So they've got to experience as well, learn from home like that. Okay, now the impact of COVID-19 for education. This is the insight from OECD as well. So you can see on the right about the impact of crisis on education and also COVID-19 and educational institutions. So you can see on the right about that, how that we should manage about teacher preparedness, and then when that we should open the school, and how about the class size? Is it safe enough or not? How about if, that we need the fresh air, for this class, or something like that. And then do we need vocational education? But COVID also have the positive impact on education. So we have rapid development on technology-based education, because that we've got, or the government or the Ministry of Education or stakeholder of education have to create and develop new teaching and learning platform and applications, laboratory apps, training apps, online discussion. But this is a good one. We have no limitation in distance and real meeting point. Let's say at the moment, I talk in here in my room, in my working room at home, and you learn and you watch me everywhere, all over the world, but it is still can do. This is the good one about the impact. And also the emergence and mass learning about the new technology base for communication and discussion. So this just gives positive mental building and creativity. So we are more creative. We've got to develop a software which is easier. We've got to develop software which that we can interact easier, something like that. And then increasing people as well, searching information through internet, because we need ebook, e-references, journal, or other resources. And also that we need to gain advice. And now it is easier and is much more possible if we need to discuss or talk with colleagues, let's say in the UK or in the US. So just setting the time that we are all convenient, and then we can talk and chat about our research project. And then work from home make people more creative and productive too. So especially in the tackling COVID-19, people all over the world, they just open their eyes widely, and then they just try how to collaborate each other. And also the information and journal and everything now is get open. So we've got more open access because of that as well. So student learning, how that students learning during the school closure. So we've got to what I have mentioned previously. So we've got several means for students learning. If it is difficult to get the internet access, maybe radio and television education could do. Instructional packages too that can be sent, or online instructional resources. We can do that as well. And how about the teacher? Teacher need to study teacher need to learn as well how to do or to teach online, because not all teachers they are capable of doing that. And at this time, this is 2020 from OECD, they said that only 60% of teachers receive professional development in ICT. So this means that not all teachers. So teachers should learn as well. And when we develop applications, lots of applications for learning management, so teachers need to learn as well how to operate that. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. So meaning that, we've got to care about what we are doing for the future. Because our ambition is, can we transform this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, into a renewing wave? Will it help bring better education system, better society, better world? This is my questions, and the answers, they are all in yours, because you are the generation who will rule the world in the future. Real change often takes place in deep disasters. This is what we did in COVID. Pandemic is also a call, a trigger to renew our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. Hey, don't forget that we've got the goals in 2030. This is because of pandemic. Don't forget about it. So with that, in ensuring all young people have the opportunity to develop knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that will allow them to contribute to future society. This means the collaboration platform is a must. With other government sectors, with private sectors, with other nations, with youth community, is a must. We cannot work ourselves. We can solve the problem ourselves. We need all stakeholders hand in hand, helping together and discuss and develop together. That is preparing the adaptation and transformative implication for our future society. That is for Industry 4.0 and also for the new normal. I think this is the end of my presentation. And I'd like to quote the nice words from Nelson Mandela. You know Nelson Mandela, so I don't need to tell you. So education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So I hope from the bottom of my heart that all of you in here is the person who would like to change the world too, for the future of better and healthy world. Rely on you, because you are the future generation. You are Generation Z. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Finarya, for the fruitful talks. Listening to your talks makes me question a lot about identity and how important it is for the globalization, and how important the self-discovery for us, young generation, or probably millennial or Generation X as well, to discover ourselves, because it is really important for globalization. Okay, thank you again for the talks, Dr. Finarya. So for the next speaker, we're gonna have, I'm sorry, pardon. We're gonna have Dr. Samira Alamudi, a star researcher, and she's going to talk about the role of science and medicine. But before the talks, I'd like to give a short introduction about who this superwoman is, who fights with her lab coat. So for the operator, please present her CV. So she's a researcher at Agency for Science, Technology and Research, or we know it as A-STAR Singapore, and achieving her PhD from National University. Sorry. from National University of Singapore and BSc from University of Indonesia. She also writes a lot of quality scientific papers and also patent. And without further ado, please welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Samira Alamudi. Dr. Samira Alamudi, over to you.
Okay, good day, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
oh, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Vivi, for the very kind introduction. And also I'd like to thank Ibu Finarya Legoh for the very interesting talk. So actually I learned a lot and I trust all the participants also enjoy the talk as much as I do. Also, I'd like to take this chance to thank Dr. Rabbit Science for organizing this wonderful event. And maybe for now, I'd like to share my screen. Give me a moment. All right. All right. So I'd like to just a little bit talk about the role of science in a COVID-19 pandemic. If you're looking at the image on your left side, I think this is the image that you are already familiar with. It seems like there is a scientist looking at observing a specimen or a sample using the light microscopy. All right, so in a good day when the sample is good and you have a good microscopy system, this is on the right side is the kind of image that you can observe from that microscopy. This is the examples of what we call is a U2OS, is a cancer cells basically. So you can see at least there are 4 cells here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can you can see more, not only the morphological of the cells, but you are able to look into the cells. You are able to see what's beneath the morphological of the cells. If you look at this, the image from the fluorescence microscopy, actually the same cells, but you are able to look at the green, the protein, or the red one, if you see, is actually the cytoskeleton of the cells, is the bone of the cell, like our bone. It gives the cells the structure of they are. So this is a nice advanced technology. And this kind of things can only be enabled through the development of science and technology. So I put here one example. If you can see here is one of the timeline of the biological discoveries throughout the years. It's dated back way in the 19th centuries, if you can see on your left side. And there are quite a number of discoveries for the past 100 years. You see in the 50s, there's the discovery of the structure of the DNA, and then which leads to a few years later, the discovery of DNA polymerase. And then if you looking at the right side, on the 80s, you see the discovery of PCR. So I'm sure you heard a lot about PCR, especially during this pandemic period, right? So you use these PCR techniques to actually test whether you are infected with the COVID-19 or not, right? So this discovery made possible in the 80s. And there are quite many discoveries, and the latest one is, you see the last one is the gene therapy system, which uses the CRISPR-Cas9 tools, which finally leads to the Nobel Prize in Chemistry last year. So it was an exciting moment also for me, because I was wishing that this CRISPR-Cas9 will win the Nobel Prize, and it did. So let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. I'm sure you're already familiar with this one, but just to refresh us, COVID-19 actually derived from the coronavirus disease 2019. So this is actually the disease that caused severe acute respiratory syndrome, or called SARS. And it was declared as a pandemic by the WHO last year in March 2020. So here you see, looking at the graph, the case goes exponentially, and there is not yet sign for the case to go down. And until yesterday, August 26, there are more than 200 million of detected cases. I need to emphasize the detected cases because we can assume that there are also many cases that are not yet detected. Right. And then now you know the COVID-19 is a disease. So we need to understand, we need to know what is actually, or rather, the cause of this COVID-19. It's actually caused by a virus called the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So this virus becomes our enemy now. If you're looking at your left side, it's actually the cartoon of the virus that you see maybe in a TV or in other media. On the right side is actually the actual image of the viral particles of the SARS-CoV-2. It seems a bit like a sun, right? You see, it's very bright, and it has this spike ping on the surface. So it's this, the virus is actually looks like a spherical ball, which contain a coat protein or the spike protein, the red one on the outer surface of this particle. So that's why the name of this, we call it corona, because it looks like a crown, you know. Corona is a crown virus. So now we know we have this enemy that caused the COVID-19 disease. This is the enemy that we cannot see by our naked eyes. So how do we fight such an enemy? That's the question, right? The only way to do it is by learning and studying more and more and more about it. We need to understand what it wants. We need to know what it does in order to survive. We also need to understand where its weaknesses lie so that we can fight this virus, right? So this is where the science plays a very important role to fighting this pandemic. Still, until now, the best way to solve the problems is by using or following the scientific method, right? The scientific method, first of all, first thing to do, you need to ask questions. You need to ask a lot of questions. You need to ask what it is. You need to know or ask how is that, where, when, and everything. Ask a lot of questions. From there, then you can do your preliminary research. You need to find out what do we already know about this, about your questions from all the information, and then you can build your hypothesis based on what you know, what could you expect the outcome will be from your research, right? From you have the hypothesis based on your basic knowledge, and then you can do your experiment or you can do your study. You can analyze your data based on your observation and based on the factual data. From that, you can deduce the conclusion, and then you can share with the scientific community and also the public. So these all things is the scientific method that we can do. So by using that scientific method, we now know more about our enemy. Now we know the architecture of this enemy. It's actually a pretty simple structure, as you can see here. You can even barely call it an organism, right? Because it needs us as a host for it to replicate and for it to survive. So it's actually a very simple structure. You see here, actually the virus on the outer layer, it contains an envelope, kind of the envelope protein. And inside the ball, inside the virus, it lies the genetic materials, which is the RNA for the virus to enable to hijack the host or hijack our cells. The interesting is that you see here, the little square here is actually what you may have heard of the spike protein. This is the one that's responsible to infect us. And this is also one of the basis for the development of vaccine later, which I will talk later. Now, even though there are still many things that are unknown about this virus, but we have more better understanding. Now we know what is the role of that spike protein. So apparently that spike protein is very important for the attachment of the virus into our cells. So by using this spike protein, the virus bind to us, bind to our cells, and then it goes inside and it releases the genomic materials. And these genomic materials then hijack our cells. So we are actually, when you are infected, actually you are being hijacked by the virus, right? The virus uses your cells to replicate more and more and more, and then it gets released. And then the virus will be ready to infect your other cells. So we are being hijacked here. We know about this, and we also know about what is the entry receptor of this virus. Is actually the entrance in our body that enable the virus to infect us. Is called the human AC2. Okay, now we have that understanding and many other discoveries about this virus. Now what we can do to limit the spread of the virus, right? So now the basic research from all over the world, all the researchers already made a quite significant discoveries. And we are now having a better understanding of how this virus spreads from one person to another person. We also kind of know how it attaches to our cells. We know how it replicates in our body. And we also know how it is different from other type of the viruses. We even know how it is different from the other coronaviruses. And hopefully by this understanding, we could know how we can translate into the developing novel drugs or even other preventive strategies against the disease. Right. So by using that knowledge, we can come into scientific rationale. So this is the role of us, us as a scientist, or you as a young scientist. For example, I give you one example here. So we know, just now I mentioned, the viral envelope consists of a lipid, right? Lipid is basically a fat. So you imagine this like a ball, spherical ball, which coated by the lipid. And we know that the lipid or the fat is actually can be disrupted by using the detergent. It's very simple, right? The detergent. So from this information, we can advise to the society, we can advise to the public that, hey, please wash your hands with the soap, with detergent, because the soap can be easily disrupt your the viral particle in your body. And another thing is that, another example, we know that the virus spreads easily. It affects people, so many people in a quite a short time frame, right? And from that, we gather information based on the research that actually this spreads through the direct contact to the infected people. And it could also spread through the water droplets or also the nasal discharge. From this information, we can advise to the public also that we need to, limit your distance with other people's, or you call it physical distancing. And also you need to wear your mask to protect yourself and to protect others and to limit the spread of the virus. Okay, now we are very familiar with mask wearing. Like everyone in the whole world, almost everyone in the whole world, we need to wear the mask. Sometimes you feel like, it's getting harder and harder to breathe, wearing the mask all the time. But actually, mask wearing is not a new thing, right? History shows that it's been used since a long time. So I give one example here. During the Spanish flu in like 1 century ago, you can see here a nurse wearing a cloth mask to protect herself again and to protect the other people. And there is one interesting research published in one of the quite bona fide scientific journal called Science Journal. It says that the infectious aerosol particles of the virus actually can be released during not only speaking, even when you are breathing, not only by the symptomatic people, but also by the asymptomatic people. So by wearing the mask, you can actually limit the exposure or reduce the exposure and also reduce the risk of getting infected, as you can see here. Right, another example of this scientific rationale based on the information that we gather, we know that the virus spread very easily. And we want to understand what is the level of the infections in the populations, right? So to do that, we need to do a diagnosis with the accurate tools to minimize the spread of this disease. By doing that, it seems that the right tools to do it is by using the molecular diagnostics, which you're already familiar is the RT-PCR. By doing the RT-PCR, you can actually, get your nose swab to get the sample of your infected cells and then tested or rather detected by using the PCR machine. Another method using the genomic sequencing or using the serological test. So based on that information, right, the keywords are actually here. To prevent the transmission, actually we are not trying to stop the outbreak from coming, because it seems like it's almost an impossible thing to do. We just want it to prevent it from coming so quickly, right? So the golden rule is still the 3T. 3T, taste, trace, and treat. We need to test as early as possible and as many as possible. So it's like the massive testing. And also we need to do the aggressive contact tracing. So it will fence the infections. And also the third T is treat. We need to quarantine and also treat the symptom of the infected people. This is still the golden rules. And looking at the data, we actually kind of know that this pandemic or this virus will not gone in a near future, you know. So now we need to learn how to kind of live with this virus. We need to learn how to coexist with our enemy. So how do we do that? We need to still follow the strict health protocols. We need to follow the strict treaty golden rules. And in addition to that, we also need to provide protection for ourselves and for the population, right? So only by doing this and through the gradual and sustained development of the whole scientific environment, hopefully we can be a pandemic ready nation. We will be a pandemic ready population. So if you are wondering what image it is on your right side, right, it's actually a schematic illustration of the mRNA vaccine. The vaccine, what you call it vaccine, is actually like this. So it's like a bubble, right? A bubble consists of a lipid on the surrounding, and inside is the mRNA. Is a short genomic containing the code for the spike protein. So this is the mRNA vaccine, which is quite a breakthrough, because usually the vaccine will be developed in like a quite long time, almost 10 years. But now we can get a COVID vaccine developed in only less than 1 year. So this is a scientific breakthrough during the pandemic. But some people feel like, oh, I don't want to be vaccinated, I don't want to be a lab mouse, because it only developed like less in 1 year. Actually, the whole story of this mRNA vaccine goes back long way before that. If you can see here, it started from the 60s. So the principle of this mRNA consists of two, mRNA and the lipid. The lipid is the fat, right? So it started in the 60s, discovery of mRNA, and through the gradual, and as I mentioned, the gradual and sustained development of the scientific environment, the researchers still try to learn more and more about this mRNA and lipid nanoparticles all the way to the 20s. And actually the first human test for the mRNA vaccine for the cancer is already started years back in 2017, around that. So even though we can develop this mRNA vaccine in less than 1 year, but the knowledge and the effort has already started long time before. And also I want to stress the importance of the interdisciplinary research. So all of this only made possible because we work together. Effort from all the scientists, all the people, or the publics, and also the policymakers all around the world. For example, for those in mathematics and computer science, they are very good, and they are contribute in predicting and anticipating through the mathematical modeling or simulation. And also those in physics or chemistry or engineering sciences, they contribute in making a good PPE. PPE is like personal protective equipment, like your mask, your respirator, and everything. And they contribute to the lipid nanoparticle, which is an important aspect in the mRNA vaccines, and also X-ray crystallography of the spike protein, and also those in biological sciences, it really contribute much in the molecular biology tools like the PCR and everything. And also they learn about the disease mechanism of this virus. And also the medical sciences, for example, about the nutritional and metabolic status of the infected people, and also how to manage the clinical implication of the infected peoples. And also, last but not least is the social and economical sciences. They help us in managing or learning or studying about the psychological and mental health of the people affected by this pandemic, and also how is the best strategy for the investment and the financial resilience. So as a concluding remarks, so until now, we know that the SARS-CoV-2, our enemy, is we call it as invisible spread. It is a tight binder and has a higher affinity. So that's why it can infect people so easily and it can spread so easily. And we need to keep in mind to still follow the strict rule of the treaty, test, and treat. And also we need to learn to live with the new normal to prevent the viral transmission and learning to coexist with the virus. And all in all this pandemic can taught us is that it shows the scientific and technological progresses along the years, and also by the doing and developing the scientific culture in environment. And also more importantly, we can also see a higher rate of the public scientific literacy along the year. And also just the last note for everyone here, for me also, the science or the pandemic teach us about the spirit of the truth seeking, and also about the honesty, about the innovation and criticism, and also the tolerance. So that's all for me. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Samira Alamudi, for the eye-opening presentations. Actually, after listening to your talks, it makes me like remember about that everything is never as it seems, because what we have seen is like a year of discovery of vaccine, but actually behind the scene is blood, sweat, and tears from the scientists a long time ago, years ago, 1,000 years ago as well. So I have a lot of questions actually about your presentation, and I hope all the young scientists here, our fellow science enthusiasts here, also curious about this topic from Dr. Samira, and I encourage you to ask her a question later after the end of the presentation sessions. So save your questions for Dr. Samira. Okay, so for the next presentation, we're going to have Dr. Chico Alaya Akbar from Digital Skola that will talk a bit about digital lifestyle. But before that, allow me to introduce who this gentleman is. So our distinguished speaker, Dr. Chico Alaya Akbar, is a co-founder from Digital Skola and also a vice chairman of Indonesian Vice Chairman for Indonesian Researcher Association in South Korea. And also, I believe he is a renewable energy specialist with more than 9 years experience on developing material and energy system. And I believe he also taking combined degree, MSc and PhD program in Cookman University with the focus on solar cells. And also he is a University of Michigan visiting researcher from July 2017 until January 2018. So without further ado, please welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Zico Akbar. Dr. Chico, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for very kind of welcome please. Good day, everyone. I believe you are from many countries across Asia or all over the world. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for Dr. Abisa invitation, which is very nice. And also, I learned a lot from the two previous distinguished presenter about digitalization and role of science and medicine. I hope I can bring you some insights about digital lifestyle, about what I'm doing currently right now. But first of all, please me check my screen first. Yeah, is my voice clear enough for you?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm afraid that the internet connection is unstable. All right. So again, thank you very much. Maybe some of you wondering that my background is actually a chemist, started from the chemistry in University of Indonesia until my doctoral degree in South Korea. But to give you a glimpse that actually I am a co-founder of Digital Skola, one of the edutech in Indonesia. And I have experience before as a head coordinator in Indonesia Open University in 2014 up to 2016. That's actually the first time I got exposure about distance learning. So distance learning at that time it was not common, but nowadays online learning, distance learning is just daily activity. I will start this presentation by saying that our world is actually changing. From the technology perspective, there's a disruptive in technology that affect other related sectors. As for example, we have known about the automation in every sector, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, 5G, right? And 3D printing, smart wearable device like the smartwatch that you are using, virtual reality. All this technology is common now. And there is also changing in socio-cultural, whereas there is changing in demography, socio-economic profile, and work population. It is very common that workforce, we don't need to go to office anymore, so it become more mobile and flexible, the increase of ethic, privacy, and health, and so on. And the last, we have seen that there's a changing also in our environment, the limitation of the fossil crisis and rise of the sea level. So there are actually many changing in our world. But I would specifically talk about the technology, the changing of technology in our daily activity. Maybe the first presenter have told you about the industry 4.0. So this industry 4.0 factory is a combination of the technology, for example, the cloud technology, the of things, the intelligent machines, and big data. All of these four combinations boost how we actually do and communicate in social, like in Facebook, in TikTok, right? And Twitter, and many more. And also, if we try to look at how we actually do games, I believe all of us here pretty much have ever do games, including me. But back then, if we want to do some gaming activity, we use console like PlayStation or Xbox. But nowadays, we can do heavy games, really heavy games just for smartphone. So the digital technology is changing very rapidly within several years. And also, we know about the virtual reality technology, and the concept of online learning is actually become a norm nowadays. And I would like to refresh back how our society is moved. our society is started from the society 1.0 as a hunter-gatherer, right? We do hunting of animal, for example, to fulfill our necessity. And then we move to society 2.0 when we do farming. And then we move again to society 3.0 when we do industrial age. And then we are here now in the information age, where we call it a society 4.0. In some countries, they are already prepared to move to the society 5.0, which is super smart society. But as we know, the technology country and the other country are not the same. Maybe in some countries, the society is moving from 3.0 to 4.0, while in other countries, from 4.0 to 5.0. If we look at deep into what Industry 4.0 technologies is doing, we will know that there are so many things that never existed before, and now it's becoming very normal. For example, from big data or analytics, right? And automation of manufacturing using software, and then Internet of Things. For example, we can control our home, our air conditioner, for example, using our smartphone, our TV using our smartphone. And then we can use augmented reality or virtual reality, where we can see, for example, scenery in Europe, in America, in other countries, just using our Googles. And then there's a cloud computing where we can store data. We can do computation just using our laptop, but because of the cloud computing, very sophisticated simulation we can actually do. And then there is also autonomous robot. Nowadays, you will see that the robot is now becoming very similar to what human can do. For example, they can stand using only 2 foot, they can run, they can do things that actually we can do every day. So this is Industry 4.0 technologies is all about. Very fascinating. And nowadays, it's not only about Industry 4.0 technologies, but because of the pandemic, Corona, we are being forced to use of this technology more and more. This is the evolution of global internet traffic, for example. In 2002, the global internet traffic is only 100 gigabytes per second. And then by 2017, it's increased to be 46,000 gigabytes per second. And this data is being reported by 2019. And it was predicted by 2022, it increased even more. I believe this data is higher than this number because of this pandemic situation. And then what affect more because of this digitalization? We should also try to look at to the digital economy. It's not about how we being affected in our daily life, but it's also a nation can be affected by digitalization. For example, if we try to see digital economy affect to one nation, we will see that at least 15.5% of GDP is being affected by digital economy. And if we go even further for US, for example, or China, it can be higher than that number, like 21.6 for the US, and China is even higher, about 36. And what is more interesting is that for the countries who has digitalization score high, it tends to have GDP per capita also higher, like Singapore, Australia, Norway, South Korea, and many more. So what I would like to stress in here is that digitalization is not a choice, it's a must. So we should be prepared for this kind of condition. The digital technology in Industry 4.4, it is something that we should be prepared. We should be well equipped with that knowledge so that we can prepare our future. So that's your duty actually. And there is so many advantages and at the same time disadvantages. For example, if we try to look at, I would like just to bold some of these. For example, the advantage of digitalization is reduce cost for business. Before, if we want to sell something, we should make a store, right? Physical store, and then start to sell business. But nowadays, if someone want to sell something, they can just make an account in Instagram, for example, Facebook, for free and start selling the business. So this is how it is nowadays. And then like maybe 10 to 15 years ago, working from home is not very common. But nowadays, especially because of this pandemic, working from home is very normal and things still can work in the normal basis. And then the last is new type of job sector. I would like to expand this little more in the next slide, but we should actually prepare. There is something, for example, in job sector is emerging, and there is another job sector is actually decreasing. And on the other hand, for the disadvantage, we know because of this 4.0 era, we have less engagement between people, even though we are in the same house, right? But we have less engagement because of we are tend to look at our smartphone, for example, and there's a privacy issue because we put our personal information when we try to sign up in application, right? And then another disadvantage, for example, disruption to traditional economy, like the one that I explained before, and there's also potential of environmental costs. Right, this is in the left side, this is the increasing demand of job sector that is emerging right now. It's all about technology. It's about digitalization now. For example, like data analysts, data scientists, AI, machine learning specialists, big data specialists, and then digital marketing specialists. This is very funny, digital marketing, I mean, very interesting, because we have never known about digital marketing before. We just know how we play in Facebook, in Instagram, but there are many people who becoming a digital marketing specialist because of this application. And also there's process automation specialist, and the list keep going on and on and on. And also on the other side, in the right side, you see that, for example, there's a decreasing demand. Data entry clerks and administrative and executive secretary, accounting, accountants. If you see, this is type of job that is repetitive. So there is a decreasing demand of this repetitive kind of job. So we should actually be prepared about the future. There is an increasing demand on one side, and there is another decreasing demand on the other side. And if we talk about the holistic view of that point, digital lifestyle, digital economy, we can divide into several sectors. For example, the infrastructure that the government try to do, for example, the internet connection, something like that, and the technology, right? And then the policy, this is also the government, and also the talents. We cannot control the first three points, infrastructure, technology, and policy, but we can actually control the talents, which is actually us, which is actually you. So what we can do is preparing ourselves, right, in Industry 4.0. But the key challenge of that preparation is that I will give you some analogy. Maybe 2 to 3 years ago, or 5 years ago even, the curriculum for, let's say, digital marketing, how we can actually do some ads, right, advertisement in Facebook, Instagram, we cannot find that one in our curriculum in school, in university even, right? Because there is some lagging. This digitalization is very fast to move, but the curriculum is lagging behind, right? That's the first challenge. The second one is the learning method. The learning method in here, it is because to learn itself is not actually easy. And to get example, teacher in this field is not easy, right? Maybe the best teacher that we can find is in the capital, while the people who want to learn about this one is in the remote area, in other region. So we need to solve that one. So the same way also apply to geography, right? Because the distribution of the human capital is not even. So we need to solve about that one. And then the employability, we also need to think about that one. What I mean by is that if we think about learning concept, it's not only about learning, but it is also about connection from what we learn and what actually industry is actually need, right? So there should be connection between learning and application. So that's what actually Digital Skola, me and my friend want to solve about this one. First of all, the curriculum, learning method, geography, and employability. This is actually quite challenging. And we try to solve that challenging by creating learning ecosystem when we try to partner with the high-tech industry, the unicorn in our countries, and top universities, not only in Indonesia, but also in other countries. And doing that, we try to focus to the knowledge that is rapidly changing. For example, like data science, data engineer, this all about like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, because this technology is rapidly changing, and digital marketing also, and everything, something like that. And we also try to build communication with the company, right? So we have a career mentor from the company side. So what we hope is that there is an inline process from what we study in class to what actually company is doing. And this kind of concept is now becoming very common. Like you can find, for example, in Coursera or Udemy, right, for doing that one. But that kind of concept, it's usually one-way direction when there is live interaction is quite limited. While in Asia, as far as we do research, the interaction between the teacher and the student is still play quite important role during the learning process. So we try to create digital Skola concept by having these three concepts. The first one is educate, the second one is collaborate, and the third one is create. What we mean by that is that in education process, we stress on the experience-based learning, and then for the step of the collaboration, we prepare for the internship program, right, for this student. So they not only study in class, but they also need to have experience, exposure, right, in organization or in the company. And then the last one is we need to have a career coaching. So this is the learning process. So this is how we actually try to prepare this young generation for this digitalization. And what we believe of this learning process is that we try to prepare to be active learning concept, as we know that from this kind of learning proposed by Edgar Dale, the passive learning, maybe the limitation is only 50%, that do things actively, like we becoming a participation, and then we do that learning process. It is 90%
Sorry, Dr.
grants by
Chico
the
Alaya.
student.
I'm afraid that your connection is unstable. You actually can turn off your video if your connection is unstable.
Is it okay now, my connection?
I think it's better
Hello?
now. Yes.
Oh, sure. All right. Thank you. Now we'll continue again. And then we try to solve that one by using Zoom online learning, and we do everything online. And our student now is, for example, not only from Indonesia, but from also other countries. For example, from Netherlands, from Australia, and also the teacher. The teacher is not only from Indonesia, but it also may be from South Korea. So actually, that's my last slide. That's how we try to prepare young generation in digital lifestyle. Digital lifestyle is actually the word of the passive word, but what we want to this young generation is to be active, to be involved, to be prepared for this digitalization that is not 1 year or 2 years ahead, but it is now happening right now. And the curriculum is actually changing. And the online learning before, if we want to learn something, we should go to universities to get a formal learning process. But nowadays, we can learn from any sources. That's the beauty of this system right now. And the last, I would like to quote from John Dewey. He's actually American philosopher. He said that if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. So thank you very much for your attention. I will give back to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chico, Alaya, Akbar, for the insightful presentation. It reminds me a lot actually about Ki Hajar Dewantara, that I think he also has a concept that education should be contextual with the time, as we know that the world is changing, it's rapidly changing, so the curriculum needs to change as well. Once again, thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Zico. And if you young scientists here, or fellow science enthusiasts here, also curious about digital lifestyle, about education and the future of education, please ask a question and direct me a message on the chat section, and we'll address the question to Dr. Zico, Akbar in the Q&A section. So, okay, so for the next distinguished speaker, we have Dr. Filda Chitra Yusgiantoro from Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center. But before we invite her, I'd like to give a short brief about who the superwoman who fights for energy security in Indonesia is. So I believe achieving a PhD in business economics from Monash University, Australia. She also has two master degree from Nanyang Business School, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and also from Università degli Studi di Padova in Italy. She also now the chairperson and senior economics from Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center, and they provide research and policy suggestion for the recommendation in the research field of energy and sustainability in the local, national, and the global level. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Filda Chitra Yusgiantoro. Over to you.
Thank you, Ibu Fifi. I think you are superwoman as well, and I think we are surrounded by superwoman and superman as well. So I believe we are all super. So thank you for the nice introduction. Greetings to everyone from Jakarta. I'd like first of all to thank the organizer, Dr. Rabbit, Science Incorporation and Milset for inviting me today. It's an honor to have the opportunity to address the topic of environment for such a distinguished young audience, young scientists. I'm also amazed on the hunger for all of you to be here hunger to receive new insights from all the speakers today. It's been a long day, but I'm amazed there's all of you are still staying in this session. So let me share my slide of presentation. Okay. Can you see the presentation? My
Yes.
slides? All right. All right. So today's topic is of particular interest of those you who are interested in environment. Specifically, I would like to talk about energy transition to tackle climate change. My goals, the end of the day, after my presentation, is for you to understand about this topic. And I think this will be very important for enriching your knowledge and prepare for you to tackle climate change through energy transition. But first, I would like to give you a brief information about Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center. Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center is a non-profit organization devoted to independent, in-depth research that leads to providing policy solutions and recommendations in research fields of energy and natural resources at the level of national, which is in Indonesia, and also the global level. So we placed emphasis on current issues and challenges in the energy sector that can have a significant impact on Indonesia's sustainable development. What we do is to provide independent research projects, seminars, or actually right now during the pandemic, it's webinars, and then we have workshops, conference, and collaborates with other public and private institutions. We also work closely with the young generation because we understand that the young generation is the voice for the future of energy. And also in the PYC, we have also have activities in the socials to assist the social society in health, well-being, and education. So the center also promotes local and also regional heritage from Indonesia as well. So that's just a brief introduction about our center. So as we can see here, this is the global average temperature since 1850 until 2020. As you can see on the left side, that is, we see that there's the second industrial revolution, which is dated from the 1870s until around 1914. 1940 is the beginning of World War I. So during the second industrial revolutions, there is a lot of innovations in manufacturing and also development methods of manufacturing, how the process, and also the production of steel as well. But after 1914, as you can see here, there was an increase of global temperature affected by the industrial revolutions, which you can see that there is a significant, not really significant, increase global temperature after 1914, which also led to the World War II, or the Second World War. It was the World War II lasted from 1939 to 1945. However, this is quite an interesting findings, but actually it's still a debate around the world. We see a stagnant trend on global average temperature between 1940 until 1970. Most scientists suspect that relatively sudden massive output of aerosols from industries and power plants contributed to the global cooling trend from this period. But please keep in mind that aerosols do not only come from household products such as hairspray, but aerosols mostly they come from mineral dust, sea salt, and then volcanic dust, and also forest fire and biomass that burn smokes, which generated by the natural process. So there was also speculation that is because the stagnate of these global average temperature between this period is because of the volcanic eruption that burst particle gas, which led the sunlight from the sun to be blocked, making the earth cooler. But still, this is a speculation, and still most scientists are still in debate about this hypothesis. However, as you can see here, by early 1980s, the slight cooling trend has stopped and aerosol pollution has decreased in many areas due to the environmental legislation and changes in fuel use. And it became clear that the cooling effect from aerosols was not going to increase substantially because of the regulation and extra. But carbon dioxide levels were progressively increasing. So people began to question the theory of an upcoming new ice age after the 1980s. This is before maybe you were born, yeah, 1980s. In the late 1980s, the curve began to increase so steeply, as you can see here in this arrow, that the global warming theory began to run wild among us. Environmental NGOs started to advocate, and then also the government began to start the policy. Even this guy here on the right side, his name is Stefan Schneider, had first predicted global warming in 1976. So it's like 1976 until now, people talk about this climate change. It's been a while, actually. So Stefan Schneider has made him one of the world's leading global warming experts. And as you can see here, who knows, everyone knows her, right? She's Greta Thunberg, the activism that began at age 15, your age, that persuade her parents to adopt lifestyle changes that reduce their own carbon footprint and call for stronger action for climate change. Now, in this, during the pandemic, the news shows that in 2020, yeah, a year back, is the second warmest year. The global mean temperature in 2020 is estimated to have been 1.27 degrees Celsius above the average temperature of the late 19th century, which is the pre-industrial era, a period often used as pre-industrial era. So this is quite alarming, because if you know that the concern is that maximum is 2 degrees Celsius, right? So we are now in 1.27 degrees Celsius. Well, as can be expected, that from the global warming is caused by the greenhouse gases, GHG, and the temperature increase over the globe is broadly distributed across the Earth, affecting nearly all land and ocean areas. So precisely, there are 87% of the Earth's surface was significantly warmer in 2020. 87%, that's quite high. So this is something that you as a young generation should need to be very, very concerned about, yeah, because I believe that you are in this era, the graphic that shows this significantly increase of the global average temperature. So the increasing global temperature have many concerns for all peoples. Given the concerns from many people, the year 2015 was the adoption of several agendas for sustainable development, for climate change, and one of that is Paris Agreement. What is actually the Paris Agreement? This is a very important large agreement made by many countries, precisely 196 parties in the Paris Agreement, that commits and achieve wants their goals to be achieved is to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius, which I just mentioned before, but preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. So to achieve this long-term temperature goal, countries aim to reach a global peaking of this greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible to achieve a climate neutral world by mid-century. So according to the Paris Agreement, yeah, member states commit this, but they also adapt the commitment to their own country. Yeah, I believe this is all of you participants are from all over the world. So if you want to search what do your country is what actions does your country have regarding to this Paris Agreement, you can see about their NDC, their nationally determined contribution. Like for Indonesia committed 29% by 2030 to reduce emission. But actually, in reality, it's really quite hard because there are lots of discussions among the governments and also the private sectors. So to have this Paris, to achieve this Paris agreement to the country itself is quite difficult. Yeah. So anyway, the achievement of this Paris Agreement led to successful operational continuity to the Cantonese climate package. As you can see here, the role has entered a new era in our collective efforts on climate change, focusing us on urgently increasing an ambition and implementation at all levels of government, business, and civil society. Now, I think I saw in the first part of presentation that there's also the similar one, which is the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, during the Paris Agreement in 2015, the United Nations also made a transition from MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, to SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. The MDGs, as you can see on the left part, has only 8 goals. And most people say that, this goals is only suitable for the developed countries, not the developing countries. So they changed to SDGs, which has 17 goals. Yes, from 8 to 17 goals is quite a huge expansion of the goals, which apply to all countries, developed and developing countries, applies to rich, middle, or poor countries. So the SDGs that are working on actually refers to pillars, 3 pillars that you can see in the next slide. It's based from 3 pillars, which is the economy, social, and environmental. So the 17 goals of SDGs could be categorized in these 3 sectors. As you know, pillars, yeah? Pillars in a building. If one pillar is broken, then the other pillars could be, potentially be broken as well. So these 3 pillars are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. And this is, these pillars are the foundation of making sustainability balance. Yeah, so between economy and society or social, this creates a society works towards lifestyle adjustments, for example, like healthier environment and well-being. And between social and economic, this is to create equal and fair share of nations' resources to its people, like help to eradicate poverty, social inequality, and raise the standard of living of the society. And then after that, between economic and environment, this creates where nations strive to meet economic growth and development while operations are pursued with environmental protection in mind. So it should be balanced between economy, growth, and also environment. This is to create jobs and also contribute to GDP and also protect the environment from harm. So these 3 pillars creates sustainability. Now, as we can see here, this is the greenhouse gas emissions by sectors in various countries. This is only as examples of what my center is doing for research. We have the Ireland, Mexico, Japan, and also France. In Indonesia, we are expected to have also carbon tax implementation policies by 2022, yeah, which is 6 more months. So it's quite, Indonesia is quite, this is a good news for Indonesia as well to reduce the emissions in the country. But look in this map, yeah, the GHG, the emissions are derived only from 5 sectors, yeah, based on the data here, which is, as you can see on the left part, is the energy sector, and then the agricultural, forestry, and other land use, and industry, and then the 4th part is from waste sector. But let's look closely to the country here. Most of them, yeah, emitted these greenhouse gases from energy sector. Yeah, this is the purple one, the purple diagram. But in Indonesia, the biggest, largest, the highest contributor to the greenhouse gas emissions is from agriculture, forestry, and other land use. Yeah, and then the second part is from the energy sector in Indonesia. Yeah, so actually the energy sector emits the highest greenhouse gas emissions in overall. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you can see here, if you see the numbers is in positive, it means that the sectors emitted these greenhouse gases. But at least let's see the -1. There's a number that has minus. Wow, that means the sector does not emit the greenhouse gases, but it absorbs. Astonishing, is it? So we can see here that Mexico and Japan has minus. AFOLU means agriculture, forestry, and other land use, meaning these two countries, the example of these two countries, has achieved successfully of mitigating the greenhouse gas emissions in their country. The greenhouse gas emission is absorbed, not emitted. That's quite astonishing. Yeah. So I think most countries should can learn from Japan and Mexico in mitigating these greenhouse gas emissions in the AFOLU sector, only the AFOLU sector. But from the energy sector and also from the industry and from the waste, it's still positive, meaning that they also emit greenhouse gases. So going back here, yeah, the energy sector, we need to call for energy transition. This is the main part of my presentation. As you can see here on the left side, energy transition phase. Yeah, we hear that a lot of energy transition nowadays, but the transition actually has already been there since the year of 1850 actually. So the first energy transition is from 1830 until 1950. That was the shift from traditional biofuels, primarily from wood, to coal. And then the second energy transition consisted of the development of production of refined oil products from 1950 until 1980. Now, the third energy transition is from 1980 to 2020 that involves increased reliance on natural gas. But the energy transition in that previous years was closely linked to energy access and consumption. Now, the current energy transition is primarily driven by sustainability reasons. That's why energy transition right now is from fossil fuels to low carbon energy, in particular using new or renewable energy. Why? Because the traditional fossil fuels emit a very large carbon dioxide when they burn, such as energy from coal and oil. So, these gases will actually result in climate disruption, causing extreme weather such as heat waves, flooding, blizzards, and droughts. But as you can see here, I want to give you an example of on the right side of the graphic, as we can see in the right picture. This is the relation of the carbon dioxide emissions from sources of energy, oil, gas, and coal from 1990 to 2021. So this is the carbon dioxide emitted by these three traditional fossil fuels, okay? So what can we say about this? Well, there are ups and downs, yeah, but I would like to see you on the latest years, which is in 2020 and 2021. The pandemic, COVID-19, slowed down the emissions in 2020, of course, it's minus. And then in 2021, the trend went significantly increased. It's quite high in 2021. So this gives us thinking about, will we achieve our goals to, strictly have a maximum of 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius in the near future? Will we make this world a healthier place to live after the pandemic and avoid the ice age that people are really worried about? The answer, from my perspective, it depends. It depends on all of us, the governments, industries, businesses, households, and you as a young generation and our future leader. Now, just a brief information for you guys, because this is what we have done as well in our center. So this is the implementation of carbon tax policies. Yeah. Now, before I said that it depends on all of us. Now, I want to focus on the government policy that has been, supporting to reduce emissions. It's everywhere, as you can see in this map. Yeah, this is called a carbon tax. Carbon tax means that the government sets a price that emitters must pay for each ton of greenhouse gas emissions they emit. Emitters means not only business that use fossil fuels, but they also aims for consumers. Now, as you can see here on the picture on the upper left of your screen, yeah, there are buildings, and then there are aviation, and then there are power generation, and also industry. They are all potentially charged for carbon tax. Now, I believe that maybe some of you has followed study of economics. You will understand that the tax imposed will eventually benefit all parties. If you learn about externalities, I think previously mentioned about external costs from Mr. Zico, yeah? So the external costs, not only do the government will benefit, but it will also benefit the businesses and consumers by this tax. I will give you some example on the next slide. I think I have this next slide, but in here, the data set from the World Bank that there are 88 countries who intend to use carbon tax to meet their Paris Agreement goals. 88 countries, so that's a lot. So this represents 56% of global emissions, if we can achieve this. So the tax received has been used for many things, as you can see here in front of you. The revenue received from the carbon tax could be, to increase economy as a whole, such as using the receive of tax for building infrastructure, bridges, housing, and then also give compensation for public, for example, useful for providing energy assistance to low-income households, for example, like energy efficient, energy conservation, and then also used for direct mitigation support, such as carbon efficient technologies. Even though we have coal, Indonesia have coal, but actually technology should be the huge part to reduce the emissions emitted from the coal. So that's kind of the tax revenue should be given to mitigate this carbon emissions increase. And there's also indirect mitigation, such as, for example, campaign, using these revenues for campaign or support for energy efficient equipment for small businesses, which are maybe not related to produce energy, but in indirect way, it will also benefit the country to reduce the greenhouse emissions. However, carbon tax have downsides. First, it is difficult to determine the exact current carbon dioxide output in one country. That is something that you, young generation, should maybe you want to create tools to measure the carbon dioxide in your country. And the second downside is that tax is obviously effective when the revenue is invested in low carbon projects, yeah, not to other projects. So it's quite difficult to to give recommendations or to, hey, I think it's better for you to the government, maybe, yeah, to the government. I think it's better for this, revenue to give to these projects, because there's some, all parties are interested in, to be funded by the government to increase their, maybe the profits and etc. So scientists and governments will always have a debatable discussion on those issues. Sorry. Now, this is the last slide of my presentation. So this is how to invent a new world, which is the theme of this conference. How to invent a new world through energy transition, based from the UNDP report in 2020. There are 3 important things that you should understand. Energy transition means boosting renewable energy, because it is expected that renewable energy can create more than, in here, my note is 42 million jobs by 2050. So renewable energy does not mean, focus on big energy equipment such as maybe solar PV or windmills, but you can look on maybe creating small solar PV that you can make to provide energy maybe to your handphone or to your laptop. There are many opportunities actually to explore, and creative minds is very important in this in this development. And the second part is that young people are powerful advocates for change. The potential of young people to get message across the world in matters of minutes. We're talking about digital. The previous session that has already mentioned that connecting ideas, lobbying for a change, maybe create some one specific message in your social media that have an impact actually to your surroundings. So young people are powerful advocates for change. And the last one is that the energy revolution is also about building bridge. What does this mean? Bridges between you as a young generation and your local surroundings. Look what you can optimize, your local resources, even your local communities. If you have water, you can create a mini hydro plant, water, yeah? Or you have a biomass, yeah? You can use that as a cooking or to cook rather than using the fossil fuel energy. So youth leaders have a key role to play in building partnerships with local and diverse communities to design the pathways for including community voices in technology, and also in just utilizing the economy, the local economy itself. So in conclusion to my presentation, that energy transition is very important to tackle the climate change, not only looking for a new energy resource, but also saving the planet from threats such as global warming and climate change, of course. Especially for young leaders from around the world, you are an important agent of change to meet the SDG 7 by 2030. Seize the opportunities and knowledge like here to you today. And if you are interested in energy career path, you might become the world's energy professionals and leaders of tomorrow. So I hope that you have gained an insight in depth on what energy transition is and how is a positive impact to the environment. I also hope that most of the participants today who are still young, I believe that you will make this world a better place with cleaner air for more generations to come. Thank you, and that's about it. I will give back to Fifi.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Filda Chitra Yusgiantoro, for the fresh and green presentations. And it's actually provokes me to like make more contribution to this energy transition for the better world and for this climate crisis as well. And it's actually makes me question a lot about myself and how can I contribute to this world. And I hope you, our young fellow scientists here, also curious and have a lot of questions also about this topic. And I'd like to remind you to to address a question for Dr. Filda Yusgiantoro, and please direct me a message on the chat section, and I will address it to Dr. Filda Yusgiantoro later on the Q&A session. Okay, so for our last distinguished speaker, we have Dr. Premadi. Are you with us, Dr. Premadi?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep. Okay, so, but before that, I'd like to ask young scientists here, have you ever heard about asteroid 12937 Premadi? If you have heard about it, you are lucky. And if you never heard about it, then you are still lucky, because we have Dr. Premadi, whose the name it's like pin in the asteroid name. So, but I'd like to also give a short brief about who this inspiring superwoman is. She is an associate professor in astrophysics and cosmology in Bandung Institute of Technology. She also a director of Boscia Observatory of Bandung Institute of Technology. I believe she also was a postdoctoral research fellow in the Astronomical Institute, Tohoku University of Japan. And also she teach about astronomy in Department of Astronomy in Bandung Institute of Technology. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Premadi. Dr. Premadi, over to you.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me into this really wonderful gathering of young people, and I'm honored to be part of it. And Ibu Fifi, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me a nice introduction. If I may, I would like to just quickly share my slides, and for all the audience, I would invite you to please stand up and do a gentle stretch. It's been a long 2 hours for you. So while I'm trying to find my share screen thing, right, so you can do your stretch, and I'll start my slide. I hope this. Okay, so I've got 30 slides, so maybe that's the schedule, maybe 30 seconds per slide. Right. I'm very much lucky to be the last speaker, because I benefit from the previous ones, from putting everybody into the right context, to listen to all this series of messages that the young people perhaps would benefit for their future. And I would like to invite you, come with me to explore the universe. We've been hearing a lot about the word environment. Now I'm trying to invite you to see our larger environment, very large, which is the universe itself, and how it is becoming our larger universe is, of course, how we relate to it and how we understand that we are part of the larger universe. Let me just put this into a, okay. Whoops. One of the very first question that human being ask about the universe is, where are we in this universe? How large is the universe? And why do they wonder about that? It's always about us in relation to a larger environment. And the universe is the largest environment there is. But of course, how do we know the larger universe? Of course, we learn from those closer to us, the moon, for one, right? So this is a really remarkable picture of the moon, our home, taken from one of the first few lucky people who got to hover over the moon or even land on the moon, and brought back pictures of our home, and see that from far away, even not so far away as the moon, the earth, our home, looks so much like other bodily objects, celestial objects that we see. And asking the question of where we are, it is a difficult question. We need to know the frame of reference on which we ask the question. But when you look at the night sky, I mean, this week you could see Jupiter and Saturn to be really, really bright. So if you have time after this talk, go out in the evening and see Jupiter and Saturn. They are giant planets, right? But they look just like tiny dots. So you can think that, oh God, how would the Earth look when we are looking at the Earth from really far away? So this is an answer to that question. So if you, this is one of my really favorite picture I've seen. I've shown this to many times. So this is Saturn, with the really beautiful, magnificent rings. But there is this mission that launched just a few years ago. It's already completed its mission, but when it was up there, just doing lots of flybys of one of Saturn satellite called Titan, it looked back towards us. So this little dot right here is not, it's not a speck on your laptop or anything. It is our Earth. It is us. It is our home. So that's how small we look, even still somewhere within our solar system. So I'm trying to take you even farther away, but we stay on Earth, looking at the night sky with our own eyes. But if you look at it in a rural area where light pollution is minimal, there's no other air pollution, then you could see the whole stretch of our galaxy, the Milky Way. Every now and then you got to see, shooting stars, etc. But this is just a huge universe. It's a huge environment. But if you lucky enough to get a hold of a small telescope, in a few hours doing nothing but looking at the sky and got clear sky, this is the kind of sky that you would look. This is the southern sky, our part of the sky from Indonesia. This is what you see. And this is the whole Milky Way with very bright stars that you can easily recognize. This is the Southern Cross, Gubuk Penceng or Layang-Layang, that is called in Indonesian. These pair of stars are the closest stars to us, the Alpha Centauri. So when you look at the sky during the night, actually you get to see far away. During the day, you can only see very close things, the mountains, which I'm looking at right now because I'm sitting in Lembang at the observatory, so I got to see the mountains. You got to see the moon, you got to see the sun. That's it. But in the night sky, you got to see really, really far, very distant stars, very distant galaxies. And if you know the Hubble Space Telescope, really magnificent telescope, been flown to the outer space in the early 1990s to see all this. Without the disturbance of Earth atmosphere, Hubble Space Telescope could see something like this. It's just like a complete black screen with colorful gems thrown all over the place. So it's all of these are galaxies. Each of them are galaxies as big or bigger than our own galaxies. Our galaxies consist of about 300 billion stars. Our sun is among them. So you can see that if each of these cute little dots have hundreds of billions of stars in it, so you can see this is a huge universe. And indeed, our universe is really large and rich. So what is it that I'm trying to get to you? What I'm trying to get to you is that our environment, the universe, is really large, very rich, as I mentioned. But it is not only its visual perception that we want is beautiful. It's in many cases very inspirational. But what we want to do is also understand how it works, how the universe works. And therefore, we come to our desk, to our books, to learn mathematics, and how mathematics teach us to elaborate logics. 2 + 2 = 4. It's not that sometimes it's 4, some of the times it's just 3. No, it's always 4. But is this a logic that is universal? We think it is, but it is not necessarily true. So it's something that we keep on checking. Now, physics is more difficult, but it is something that allows us to see, for example, with Dr. Yusgiantoro talk about energy so much. What is our main source of energy for our life? It's the sun. How do we know that the sun has so much energy? How do we know that the sun would last longer than, say, next week? How can we be so sure that our source of energy would still be available till thousands of generations to come? It's physics. We calculate how the sun generates its energy, how long it's going to last. So don't worry, it's going to last for another billion years, for example. But what we don't know is whether the physics that we understand works so well within our closer universe, in the solar system, for example. Would it work? Would it still be valid if we work on the galaxies so far from us? The same Einstein theory works. Would still the electromagnetism that allows us to understand photon, how they bring light, how they bring information to light. Are they the same law of physics working out there? We don't know. So therefore, we are pushing our boundary further and further to check on that. So far, so good, but it's not all good. Some things are really extreme that is just at the border of our understanding of physics. So it is very, very invigorating to know about all this, but also not having the direct and direct and also urgent consequences as far as what we have on Earth. But what we learn from the universe is very important in ways of understanding ourselves. So understanding how the universe evolved, how it come about, and so on, make us understand a little bit on how the Earth and the solar system came about, including ourselves. So we talk about the universe, and now we come back home and deal with ourselves, with life, with consciousness, and human, as far as we know, so far, are the only living being endowed with consciousness and mind. So why is it that we are so lucky to have all those? We don't know. It's a still very deep quest. In many cases, people even put it in terms of it is still a very deep mystery. But science is pushing, again, its boundary to see if we got answer to those questions. So let me just step a little bit back before talking about consciousness and mind to the question, what is life? What do we mean by life? How could we differentiate? But this is a living being, is this a non-living object? How do we know? Well, it reproduces, it consumes energy and so on and so forth. So there's this definition about life that we still don't have a good handle of. Life needing energy, for example, we eat, stone, for example, doesn't eat, right? So, but there are other things that it's not so easy to to differentiate, especially if you come down to very, very simple life. What is it? What about protein? So Dr. Alamudi talked about that in her talk. So what is protein? So what is life in reference to protein, for example? So when is life emerging? Where else that we could find life away from Earth? So those are the questions which still a very, very deep question. We understand better about stars. We don't understand about life, and we are living beings. Now, the questions of life is pushing us to understand also not about the living itself, but the diversity of living beings. How is it that there's so many species, still alive today? Not to mention those already extinct due to various reasons in the past. Even us human beings, we don't have a complete common feature. We have a little bit differences, but not much. So if you see the genome, which is the very fundamental structure of living being, all humans are very, very similar. The difference is awfully small. But what about other living beings? So those are the questions that we keep on asking. It's a huge complexity in this regard. Now, if we look at us and in our environment, the Earth has been really, really a wonderful home for us. It supports us not only for a short time, but for a really long period that we could develop, life could develop. So if we look at other places, how would we know there is life or nothing in those areas? Well, it's difficult because we don't understand life, as I mentioned. But very quick test would be something like this. If we look at the Earth from far away, this is how Earth looked during the day. It's called the blue marble. So the ocean is really manifesting itself. It's the blue and the white, of course, the clouds, and you've got dry area. This is Africa, and this is the Arabian Peninsula. So the ocean and the clouds give us the idea. It gives an indication. It must be water in vapor, water in fluid, plenty of water, and very rich compound of molecules. And in our understanding of life, it is quite possible that something like Earth, seen from afar, would harbor life. Now, another question would be: is that life, simple, or is it something really complex, even intelligent? That we don't know. Now, the answer would be something that we could perhaps get from the Earth surface, the view of the Earth during the night. When everything is dark, the sun is on the other side. This side of the Earth will be dark. But all these dots of lights are, of course, artificial lights, lamps. So this artificial, even the word artificial already give you a hint. That's a sign of technology. So if you got lights on the dark side of the planet, you could guess there must be some intelligent life out there because they're producing technology. Now, Earth itself is a really fragile home for us. It is fragile because we say so, because we live on Earth. So anything not nice happening to Earth, it's a huge consequence to us. But that Earth is about 6,000 kilometers in radius. It's really large, right? But its atmosphere is awfully thin. But that thin atmosphere is enough to protect us, to keep us safe from harm outer environment. It could be high level energy, or it could be just huge stone. One of those asteroids might come too close to us, even smack the surface of the earth, and everything could just gone in no time. So our Earth, the atmosphere has not been like what it is from the very beginning. It evolved, and this is how it's a small cartoon of how the atmosphere evolved. And this is now, so this is the horizontal axis is time, and the vertical axis is the abundance of chemical components, the main chemical components of our atmosphere. So what we see here is that, okay, what we need to live? Oxygen, there you are. Oxygen is not enough until about 0.6 billion years ago. So if you wanted to live early, you're gonna guess for oxygen because there's not enough of it. But on the other hand, carbon monoxide was pretty high way in the beginning of Earth. So, but with the same thing with carbon dioxide, but it goes down with time. But you know, a little bit of this is going up because of the industrial revolution and all that Dr. Yusgiantoro mentioned to you. So this is a little hint for you that life couldn't exist from the very beginning if life need oxygen, if life need water. So this is how life, we think, evolved from the very, very simple beginning. So photosynthesis was probably initialized by some simple bacteria about 2.5 billion years ago, way back when, right? And it was assisted by light. And you know that photosynthesis is making something using photon, using light. So what is it making? One of the things that we need, oxygen. Whoops. Now, oxygen interacts with other chemical, produce ozone. We don't breathe ozone in, but ozone is part of the atmosphere, which is protective. It protects us from the energetic rays that I mentioned before. With that protection, complex life could develop. You know, very simple life, they're easy to survive. You know, they're so not like human being. You know, if it's too cold, we sneeze, right? If it's too hot, we got headache. If it's too acid, we got stomachache, and so on and so forth. So it's very difficult to develop complex life because it requires very, very specific environment. If you don't have that particular environment, you're not going to survive. The other thing is that the life on Earth benefit is geological feature. You know, it was ice. It was dominated by ice many times, many era before, but now it's just nice and green. You know, it's something that living being like human could live quite comfortably. Now, simple life, as I mentioned, they survive in harsh environments, so they're practically everywhere. So therefore, when we look at other life in other planet, for example, we don't only look at where temperature is nice or plenty of water. We also have to look at where it's awfully hot, pressure is too high, and awfully toxic. We have to also look at those areas, just in case some life might survive in those harsh environments. So come back to Earth. What is it that makes Earth so reliable for us, a living being? Well, one of the things is that Earth has enough gravity to make everything sustain within its gravitational field. So therefore you see cycles, you see water cycles and other kind of cycles, which are not as popular as water cycle, but this cycle makes sure that, you know, you got waste thrown over and recycle and come back as something pure, and then you use it, and there it repeats, and then you benefit from it, not just to, again, survive, but develop into something more complex. I'm going to concentrate more on water now. So in the previous talk, we mentioned about our need of energy and how our carbon footprint could be sort of estimated by our consumption of energy. Another thing that we need in life is water. Most of our bodies consist of water. Oxygen is distributed by blood, but blood is consisting mostly of water. So how much is water needed in life is different from various kind of life. But how much water are there on Earth? Well, there are a lot of water. 70% of Earth's surface is covered by water, but it's salty water, the ocean. But what about fresh water? Well, shockingly enough to many of people, there are not very many. They're not very, very much fresh water. In fact, it's awfully small. So if this is representing the volume of Earth, this is the portion of fresh water in terms of Earth volume. So it's awfully small. It's, if we look at this, a lake, a rushing river, or glacier, it looks like there are plenty, but no. So these are this distribution. So it's interesting to also doing something which is analogy to carbon footprint, is to calculate your water footprint, how much you use water. And it's important to know that water is not just for drinking. Water is also used for agriculture, also for industry. So you have to calculate all those to understand that is a huge amount of water that each person is using. Now, water is not only consumed by living being, but it's also a natural carrier, a very powerful carrier. So you have learned about all this, the cycle of water, and water come down as rain or snow, and stay on the ground, stay on the water that open surface. It's got evaporated by the sunny day and so forth. But another part of water that we don't quite see is the ocean current. And just as late as a few months ago, people discover that this current, which goes around a rather complicated way in our oceans, have been slowing down. And people thought that it might be one of the consequences of the global warming. That something moves if it has enough gradient, enough difference between high and low, right? If the ocean water is warm enough, then this gradient is getting smaller. So the current is getting slower. So what happens if the current is slow? And all the motion of salinity, which is the level of salt in seawater, all the nutrients for ocean beings, everything got slowed down and got messed up. So the global warming is not just affecting us, it's affecting everything in ways that is not completely understood yet. So this is something that you might want to understand. So we haven't got a full comprehension where fresh water come from, where water come from. There is a possibility that water came from various impact from outer bodies when the Earth was very young. One of my former students did that research. How much water came by way of asteroid impacts, for example. It's not very much. So we don't expect that water on Earth would be enriched in the future, because we don't expect big things to come down to impact on us. We don't want that, because it creates other horrific problem. But on the other hand, that might be another way of getting water. So it is important to keep everything that is natural resources in good manner, because we don't know where they come from. We cannot get results from other sources. So this is how we use water. We live to areas where water is easily available. So humans are not spread evenly over the Earth's surface, right? So, for example, again, this is the Arabian Peninsula. Most of them are the deserts, as far as northern Africa. But this of course, again, like the picture I've shown before, the view of the night feature of Earth. So all these are artificial lights. And these are lots of population here, right? This is Europe. What is this? This is the Nile River. People live close to where water is available. So therefore, this not evenly distributed human being creates a lot of things. So, for example, complexity, and we are growing in numbers. We need to be very compassionate, not to our fellow being right now, but to our fellow earthling for the future. We need to make sure that they all will live well, at least as well as we do now. And with the very, very small amount of water, we divide them into us human being, other living being, whatever else there is just a small amount of each of us. So it is important to extend our understanding of how natural resources affect us, and extend it into compassion. Now we also understand that the global warming is causing huge problem. We've seen this graph in the previous talk, but look at this. This is Jakarta. This is an article published in New York Times, a very famous newspaper, about Jakarta. Jakarta is thinking. Everybody is drilling water in drilling wells for water. So this is making the Earth's surface in that area sink. And after a long time, not very long actually, about 100 years, Jakarta would be almost completely sunk. You don't want that to happen. So we need to act rather wisely and quickly. Another thing that we learn from understanding the universe is how things interact with one another. And if a system consists of various objects and allows various forces to be the driving force, then you'll see complexity. You know, one object would interact with the other, and then all complexity would create something which is not fathomable in the previous calculation. You cannot predict very well into the future if complexity is very high in the system. So we've seen this in the natural world, and we've seen this also among our social connection. So how the epidemic stays this long is because how we interact is just so complex. You know what this is? Of course, this is, that's how airplanes are going here and there. All these are the big airport hubs. But with the big airport hubs, with all the airlines route, come all the diseases, come all information. So these are many things that we could learn from our reflection towards the natural world, how it works. Some of it, if not a majority of it, also works in the system of human being. Now the Earth is getting troubled, and we also been lured by lots of news of extra extra Earth exploration, all these super jet set people flying jets all over the place, you know. So the question is there life away from Earth? Can we live somewhere else? Well, we've been trying to do research on it in a very, very serious manner. And I'm just going to show you one place that people like to visit. This is Mars. We have not sent anybody there just yet, but we've sent lots and lots of instruments, and the latest one being Perseverance and its little drone helicopter Ingenuity, which are still there right now. Look at this place. Doesn't look very appealing, does it? It's you know, it's just very barren. It's, the sky look gloomy. I don't think I want to live there. So even if we have to live there, we have to prepare lots and lots of logistics to make a person live in the most bearable situation. So Earth is our heavenly home. You better keep that. And what about other places? In other stars also harbor planetary systems. Some of them are ready, some of them are old, some of them are, most of them are just so different from our solar system that, you know, we can't even think that life could emerge in those areas because they're too close to their sun, for example, or too far away from their sun, which we call the habitable zone, where water could exist in fluid. So these are ongoing research in astronomy, but what I'm trying to show you is that all this research in astronomy always you could bring back to see how life is on Earth. What is it that we need to keep preserve, because everything out there is so different from Earth. Now, so I'm almost close to the end. So I've shown you, I've taken you along to see the universe. The universe is really vast, it's huge, it's really, really rich, and it keeps on giving. Problem is, it waits for us to move our finger to discover. So what you need to do is keep on asking, keep on searching, and you know, you never know what is it that you learn from faraway galaxy that could be relevant to us. So here are a few, I hope, take-home pointers for you. So how is it that we could be part of this great going on? Well, be part of the coolness. I said it's really cool to be part of STEAM. I like to put arts in addition to STEM, so there you are. So what is it? Just keep on looking out and beyond the world, wonder and marvel, ask questions, and you have lots and lots of potential to take part in conserving nature, including the dark skies. Don't turn on the light if you don't need to, and make sure your light is covered so it's not lighting the sky, so you could see stars. So, and then enjoy your science class, your math class, and of course your art class. Here I like to just stop and show you this upper picture. This is very similar to those that you've seen lots lately, you know, the coronavirus. But you know what this is? I took this picture long before the coronavirus, you know, what, maybe 10 years ago or something. This is a crystal manifestation of Leonardo da Vinci's drawing. So he was just thinking about, imagining about various kind of geometry that could exist, you know, possible to sustain, it's not going to collapse on its own, something like that. So this is a crystal manifestation of Leonardo da Vinci's drawing. You never know, the coronavirus would look exactly just like that. And another thing is just make yourself a citizen scientist, which is a buzz right now. You know, you can do a lot of science work really easily, leisurely, but just joining one of those many scientific missions and be part of a wonderful network, because then you get to know people, you got to discuss, you got to complement each other's ideas, and that way you stay relevant to what's issue is being dealt with, and be a contributive part of it. At the end, I'm just showing you a picture. This is a nice photograph of our Milky Way, not easily recognizes it is because it's a picture taken by this person for 1,200 and more hours. So with that, you could see even the dim thing, like the cold gas, very dim stars is something that you cannot see with your eyes, even with your small telescope. So with that, I'll end and hope you have enjoyed the universe trip and come back home with a more wiser perspective. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Premana Premadi, for such an eye-opening talks presentation. And it makes me actually questioning a lot about home, what actually home is. And the Blue Marble, is it the only home we ever known? Okay, but before the so that actually the end of the presentation in this plenary session. But before the Q&A session, actually the organizing committee have a good news that today in this session there is Dr. Ashwin Sasongko. I'd like to inviting him today for give some opinion about today's session. So please welcome Dr. Ashwin Sasongko. Over to you.
Thank you, Fifi. Well, I just want to make some sort of short notes. I make a bit of short notes of this morning and this afternoon meeting. Very interesting. Let me share what I have. Just one slide. And once I hope that it can cover all that we discussed this morning also. First of all, it's interesting. Everybody said we have to live side by side with COVID until, well, I do not know. Of course, everybody wants it as soon as possible, right? Also, Ibu Premana. Yesterday, I went to Bosca. I went to Lembang, actually. Then I walked to Bosca. It closed, right? Nobody is allowed, well, unless the person there. But tourists like me, it is not allowed.
Epidemic, sorry.
Yeah, of course. Not only Bosca, ITB is also closed anyway. And that is normal. We don't know yet, but hope everything will be finalized as soon as possible. Hopefully by the end of this year. So next year we can enter Bosca again and see the stars. New normal way of life due to COVID. Everybody mentioned this. Every day we have to clean our hands with soap. And as Madam Frida mentioned, we have to be able also to think about not only soap and so on, but also to live with new energy, new cleanliness, and so on. ICT will be used more and more intensively, hence more activity in the cyberspace, just like what we are doing today. Industry 4.0, like Ibu Finarya mentioned, Industry 4.0 is computer-to-computer communications, launched by Angela Merkel a few years ago. But next, artificial intelligence, it's open now. Quantum computing, and so on and so on. Not only computer-to-computer communication, but AI will also analyze whatever is in the communication and see what can we do. Now, AI is highly used in the Perseverance and Ingenuity drone, right? Ibu Premana, the rover actually chose its landing site on Mars, millions of kilometers from here. Then we have the Society 5.0, proposed by Prime Minister Abe from Japan a few years ago. Then, but with AI, that time when Society 5.0 was launched, we don't have COVID, not yet AI, not yet new normal life like this. So what's it then? We have Society 6.0 perhaps, living every day, cleaning our hands, using masks, then talk with computer, And be careful, don't if you speak, because Siri and Alexa always listen to you. Also Celia sometimes it laugh when I make a joke. Well, just joke, you know. Ibu Frida, you are laughing. Are you with Siri now? Siri is behind you or
No, not yet, sir.
not yet? Okay. No, don't worry. Siri and Alexa is always with us. Just a joke for all of us. Prepare for nature change, non-steady state Earth. Nature change, natural change, like what Ibu Frida mentioned, non-steady state Earth, like Ibu Premana mentioned, due to our activities, due to our so many CO2, whatever. Then we have sinking of Jakarta, we have wildfires and Kelowna. I can't believe this. My youngest daughter is studying in Kelowna, and she mentioned about wildfires near Kelowna. It's, you know, it's very cold there, but we have wildfires. Then, as Ibu Frida mentioned, we have new type of energy, new type of industry. What else? What kind of energy? New technology, environmentally and economically acceptable. That is important. Not only technologically, naturally acceptable for our nature, but also it has to be economically acceptable. Otherwise, it will be too expensive. Solar, nuclear is fusion and fission. Now we have the fission, but next we have the new type of technology, perhaps in nuclear, which is safer for us. Hydrogen technology, hydrogen energy based. The mixture of hydrogen and oxygen, we have water and we have new energy. What else? It is very, very unlikely that very likely that we will have new energy every day. Cleaner, but must be economically acceptable too. The near future, I think it's mentioned by almost everybody. ICT network everywhere for everybody. We have space-based activities from Starlink, internet broadband-based satellite, 550 kilometers from Earth, which can be connected to all of us. Google, a balloon only 20 kilometers from Earth. When President Joko Widodo went to the US, the president attended the signature of signing Google, the possibilities of testing Google for area Indonesia. Starlink already offered Starlink operation in 2022, $99 per month, something like that. So it is just in front of us. Well, I mentioned a bit expensive idea, Ibu Premana, there's holiday in outer space. But if Jeff Bezos can do that today, in 20 years' time, why not all this youth here having holiday in outer space? Today, Jeff Bezos, I do not know how much he pays for his Blue Origin satellite, but no, Origin toys, but today it's expensive, I know, but in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, might be available for my grandson and granddaughter to go there, to have holiday in outer space. Should be nice. And outer space, I like it very much, you see, but Ibu Premana, you only mentioned Mars mission on the Perseverance rover and Ingenuity drone. Ingenuity drone is very interesting because it combines the technology of outer space, but also for electromechanical, but with the highest artificial intelligence we know on Earth, because it goes to Mars, it landed, it moved on its own idea, not ordered, without any order from the world. So from the space, the station in the world, but it find out its own landing area. So it is interesting. You have not mentioned our visitor from outer space, Oumuamua, is very interesting. How it can move here and there. So hopefully this is the end of my notes, and the technology development has no limit, and all of us has to be ready for all the changes. Every day we have changes. So thank you, and hopefully our you young guys, you have ready for all the changes. Have holiday in outer space in 20 years time or 30 years time. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Dr. Sasongko, for the comprehensive wrap-up today's session. Actually, now I don't have a job anymore as a moderator because it's already wrapped up by you. thank you very much. And then today we're gonna have Q&A session, but unfortunately, I think Dr. Samira cannot join us, but I'll make sure the question you have for Dr. Samira will be sent to her, and I will give it back to you for our young scientists here who have question for Dr. Samira. But firstly, I'd like to apologize for keeping you late. But let's, without further ado, let's go to the Q&A session. So this is a question for Dr. Zico, actually. Dr. Zico, are you still with us? Sorry, Dr. Zico Akbar, are you still with us?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this is the question from our young scientist here. She would like to know that, as we know, in Indonesia, the condition of areas that do not have good internet network infrastructure is still quite a lot. How do we reach the areas that are still lagging behind in technology if we are going to change towards digital in various activities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very wonderful and wonderful question, actually. That is our challenge. First of all, in Indonesia, I would like just to give a brief condition, what it looks like in Indonesia, what we are trying to solve. The first one is that the teacher itself, majority are in capital city. That's one thing. But the student is from over the islands in Indonesia, like from Sumatra until Papua. What we are trying to do is to cover as much as many students as possible. But unfortunately, for the place that is quite difficult to get the internet connection, stable internet connection, we cannot actually help for that one. Maybe waiting for Starlink or something like that to solve this kind of issues. Yeah, that's also one of our concern for solving this kind of issue, because we are using cloud computing actually to run machine learning and artificial intelligence itself. So the internet connection should be stable enough to run the process. But thank you very much for the question.
Okay, I totally agree with you, Dr. Akbar. I think it's time for us to probably think about the technology in remote area as well. I think this pandemic has become a reminder for us to think also about the remote area as well, and to spread the digitalization as well in the remote area. And I also agree, I think since the Starlink or the project for the digitalization is not available yet, probably we can contextualize with the availability of the source in every part of Indonesia as well, make it more contextual as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Chico, for the answer. If you guys have more questions or further questions regarding this digital lifestyle to Dr. Chico, please, I'll encourage you to direct message me, and I'll email it to and send it to Dr. Chico Akbar. Okay, so for the next questions, it's actually for Dr. Yusgiantoro. Are you still with us?
I'm here, Fifi.
So actually, this question is about carbon tax. So this gentleman here is actually curious about the carbon tax. Actually, how is the reaction from the stakeholders about this carbon tax implementation, especially in Indonesia? Or you can also probably mention about example from other countries as well. So I think that's all the question. So please, Dr. Yusgiantoro. Yeah, over to you.
So yeah, thank you for interesting question. Actually, you mean that the implementation, the current implementation from countries? Is that the question, Pipi?
Yes, I think that's the question, like how the reaction from the stakeholders about this news,
Okay.
also the implementation.
Okay. Well, you know, every new policies in each country will always have two opinions, the positive reactions and also the negative reactions. If we like see ourselves as well, if we have like a transition, a new transition, it's quite overwhelming for us as well. So the policies, the carbon tax policies in Indonesia, Indonesia will be implemented in 2022. The reaction is quite negative for several industries, but also positive in other sectors as well. For the environmentalists, they support this, but from the industry that emits high carbon dioxide is still reluctant and still quite concerned if this implementation will affect on their businesses. So in a way of saying that because that Indonesia has already agreed, in the Paris Agreement, and most of the countries as well, I think I think that carbon tax is one of the ways, one of the effective ways that could reduce the emissions in Indonesia. We need to look longer term, not only short-term goals, because in longer term, even though what I have already mentioned, if there is a carbon tax, if you see the economic theory that the tax will also benefit for other sectors as well. So maybe there's the negative reaction is just in the first beginning, but in realization that the carbon tax can benefit and also support also the profit for the industries that are impacted. That's the thing. So regarding in the reactions, there are two sides, and also mentioning that there is also a movement of replacing the fossil fuels energy to renewable energy, even though the investment cost is now a little bit lower, but still higher than if we use the fossil fuels energy. But it's supply and demand actually is in the economy. If the demand increased, the demand increased, then the price will also decrease. So it's just all about price and quantity in a supply demand market. I think that's I hope that's the answer that you are looking for.
Okay, interesting. Actually, the question also interesting because it's about reactions about the new policy. And thank you very much for the answer, Dr. Yusgiantoro. So for the next question is for Dr. Premana Premadi. The question is about science. How do you as a scientist actually perceive about science in this modern world? So Dr. Premana Premadi, over to you.
Oh, that's a lovely question. Thank you. I don't think I know the complete answer to that, but I can just tell you my perception. Science is a human endeavor, as such that the quality of its product, the success of its implementation in civilization evolve with time, evolve with how serious human is putting its effort towards bettering science. If people think that science is part of their life, it's not only the product that they use, it's just not the fundamental ideas that works for your cell phone, but also the way people think, the way people rationalize think, then science is more beneficial. So I think, and it will be more interesting. So therefore, at the end of my talk, I invite everybody to join the bandwagon of science. Why? Because it is part of our civilization. Without science, we're not going to be here in this living condition. People have a better way of living because they understand hygiene, medicine. They understand the stable structure for their home, etc. And they could live for a long time, even in areas which are not perhaps friendly to human being. So lots of things about science is driven by our need, but also it's driven by our curiosity. So what is it? Why do we want to know about galaxies? Our life is not depending on those galaxies, and we're not having anything to do with those galaxies. It's just because part of our human being, we are endowed by mind, by not just consciousness, by mind. It's a huge endowment. And one of the things that we benefit from it is just knowledge, for knowledge, not knowledge for anything beneficial for life, but knowledge for knowledge is part of humanity. So I think that's my answers.
So amazing. It's part of being a human being or a being. It's a way of life, probably. Thank you very much for the answer. So I'm afraid this is going to be our last question to be addressed, because I'm afraid that it's too late, because it's already 6:02. So this last question is actually for Dr. Yusgiantoro. So this young scientist just want to know about the improvement of environmental. So a pandemic is a large unexpected event. How do we maintain consistency in the improvement of environmental change that take a long time, considering the unforeseen events that can disrupt the recovery? So Dr. Yusgiantoro, over to you.
Yes, Fifi, I'm here as well. 2 questions. Okay. All right. So this is question, very interesting question that many people are concerned as well, because there is this target that we need to achieve, like emission reduction in Indonesia, for example, by 29%. But currently we are in a state of, very far from that, the target. The thing is that we need to look at the effort of all the stakeholders right now. In Indonesia, for example, the government is doing its very best, to have regulations, and then also there's, I saw that there is an increasing efforts to put renewable energy, giving new policies on supporting new and renewable energies in Indonesia. So even though, it's a big thing that, we sometimes want everyone to do similar action like that, right? But we are humans. We know humans, another human beings are different. So and then a group of human beings have these several several perspective, and other groups of human beings several perspectives. So it's so this is quite difficult, and even though there is this burden of us that need to achieve that target, I believe that from the stakeholders, from the policies, from the government has already done their part, and also from the school as well. I see there's a from the housing itself, by doing just like separating a waste, plastic, and then also the food waste is small things that matters actually. And you as a young generation, I think it is very important for you from right now to understand what's the issue right now, and what could you do better maybe in 10 more years. You need to build up that mind thinking. And maybe you can, voice your concerns as well. Maybe you voice your, your recommendations through your social media, maybe, and small things matters, Fifi. So I believe that small things, small actions, and making it a bigger, a bigger ball of things that to achieve the targets for reducing the emissions in a near future.
Yeah, I agree. The butterfly effect, right?
Butterfly effect, yeah.
So I hope that answer your curiosity, our young scientists. I'm afraid I could not address all the questions today because I'm so sorry that we keeping you late today. So I think that's the end of our session. And it's a pleasure for me actually to be your moderator today for this eye-opening session with all the distinguished speakers today and young citizen fellow scientists here. And it is actually an honor for me to meet all of you today. And I think one last statement probably, and this is inspired by Dr. Premana as well, that we need to keep exploring, keep thinking, and keep wondering. So I am Fifi Fitrianti, educator and researcher from Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center. I think I'll see you tomorrow in the focus group discussion. Bye-bye. And over to you, Miss Ade as the MC. I'm signing out. Bye. Miss Ade, I think you still mute your microphone.
Okay, thank you, Fifi. Thank you very much to all speakers of this lively afternoon session. We hope that all participants can get a complete understanding of the presentation to be used as the references on the focus group discussion tomorrow. Before we end today's meeting, we would like to just show you our agenda tomorrow. Then tomorrow will be filled with focus group discussion. All participants will be divided in 7 groups. There will be a breakout room, and there will be 7 facilitators to help the participant in the group discussion. Since it's already late, then we have to end the meeting shortly. Then I think it will be better if we just discuss the mechanism for the focus group discussion tomorrow morning. That's why we would like to all participants to come on time, 5 minutes before time that tomorrow the conference will start at 9 o'clock. Okay. I hope everybody, the participants and the speakers, enjoy today's session and get very much benefit. Stay healthy and safe to everybody. We will meet again tomorrow, 5 minutes before 9. Okay? Thank you for all your participation today. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.